Am I wrong to uninvite my sister from my wedding? I thought my life was finally coming together. After years of dating the wrong guys and dealing with relationship drama, I met Jake, the man I was sure I'd spend the rest of my life with. We had been together for 3 years, and he proposed last year. Our wedding was just a few months away, and everything seemed perfect, at least on the surface. However, my relationship with my sister Emily, 25F, had always been complicated. We used to be close, but things changed as we grew older. A few months ago, I found out that Emily had been sleeping with some of my exes while I was still dating them. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a pattern of betrayal that crushed me. I couldn't believe that someone I trusted so much had been doing this behind my back for years. In my pain, I made the difficult decision to uninvite her from my wedding. The thought of her standing next to me on the most important day of my life, pretending everything was fine, felt like too much to bear. My parents, of course, were furious. They pressured me to forgive her, saying I was tearing the family apart over old mistakes. The pressure from my family, Emily's betrayal, and the looming wedding had been weighing on me for weeks. My mind was spinning, replaying every interaction, every memory, and every decision I'd made leading up to this point. I knew something wasn't right. After finding out about Emily's history with my exes, a nagging voice in my head kept asking, what if Jake wasn't different? I didn't want to believe it. Jake had always been supportive, loving, and attentive. But the thought that maybe, just maybe, he and Emily had something in the past gnawed at me. It was eating away at my sanity, making it impossible to think straight. I had to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. I finally made up my mind. I would ask him point blank if he had ever been with my sister. I was terrified of his answer, but the not knowing was worse. That night, as soon as Jake got home from work, I gathered my courage and asked, Jake, I need to know something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Have you ever slept with Emily? His reaction was worse than I could have imagined. He didn't immediately deny it. Instead, his face went pale, and his eyes widened in shock, like I'd just said something he'd been dreading for years. He didn't speak. He just sat there, staring at me, as if searching for the right words. The silence stretched on, each second feeling like an eternity. My heart pounded in my chest, a sick feeling growing in the pit of my stomach. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost as if he didn't want to say the words out loud. Yes, he whispered, but it was years ago, before we started dating. I felt like the floor had fallen out from beneath me. My whole world came crashing down in that moment. How could he have kept this from me? How could my own sister, who I had trusted, done something like this? The room felt like it was closing in on me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run away from everything. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I sat there trying to process Jake's confession, my phone rang. It was Emily. I stared at her name flashing on the screen, not sure if I had the strength to pick it up, but something inside me told me I had to. I answered, my voice shaking. What do you want, Emily? She was crying, sobbing, actually. Through her choked-up words, she said, I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else. My heart sank even further. What else could there possibly be? I've been sleeping with Jake for years, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Even after you started dating him, I tried to pursue him. I thought he'd leave you for me. I couldn't breathe. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My entire relationship with Jake felt like a lie. The man I was supposed to marry, the man I thought I knew, had been cheating on me with my sister. How long had this been going on? How many moments we shared had been tainted by their betrayal? I didn't even know how to respond to Emily. I hung up the phone, numb from shock, and just sat there. Jake was still sitting across from me, staring at the floor, not saying a word. The silence between us was unbearable, filled with the weight of everything unsaid. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but I was too broken to even find the words. The man I was supposed to marry, the one who was supposed to be my forever, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. In the days that followed, my parents were relentless. They called me over and over, begging me to invite Emily to the wedding. You need to put this behind you. they said. Family is all that matters. But how could I? How could I look at Emily and pretend like she hadn't ripped my heart out? My mom was especially insistent. She kept saying, "Everyone makes mistakes, sweetie. You can't let one bad decision ruin your relationship with your sister." But this wasn't just one bad decision. This was a betrayal that had lasted for years, that had infiltrated my relationship with Jake, the man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. Jake tried to talk to me, but I couldn't even look at him. Every time he tried to explain, to justify what happened, all I could hear was Emily's voice confessing what she had done. How could I ever trust him again? How could I marry a man who had been hiding such a huge part of his life from me? The wedding was fast approaching, but now I wasn't sure if I could go through with it. I felt lost, betrayed, and utterly alone. The people I trusted most had destroyed me, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive them. My life, the one I thought was perfect, had been built on lies and secrets. Now I'm standing at a crossroads. Do I forgive Jake and Emily for the sake of keeping my family together? Or do I walk away from everything and start over, even if it means being alone? The choice feels impossible, and no matter what I decide, I know nothing will ever be the same again.